If we had perfect data, could we find perfect partners? Being an Indian woman building a matchmaking app is as much of a positive as there could possibly be, right?
Which data points have turned out to be surprisingly poor predictors of long-term compatibility, despite seeming intuitively important at first?
If someone says, oh, I want a girl who's a little more edgy, how is your AI supposed to understand vibes?
What unique challenges do you think you faced?
I would love more VC funding to go to female founders, right? If all I do is try to fight about that, I would rather let a really massive company and then be someone who can write those angel checks into investments.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode. Today's guest is Nandini, the co-founder of Sitch and the personality behind Dini in a Bottle. She's reimagining matchmaking by blending AI with human touch. From creating fun and relatable content online to building a startup in one of the toughest spaces, relationships. Nandini's journey is about connection, culture, and what it really takes to be a founder. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that really great intro.
Let's start from the beginning. Everyone knows you as a fun, relatable content creator as well as matchmaker online. If you had to explain what you do in just one line, what would it be?
I love love, and I'm trying to set up as many people as humanly possible.
Okay, I like that. That's very difficult, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot about how you do it. Where are you from originally, and how do you think that shaped the way you see people and relationships?
So this one's super easy because I always talk about how I grew up in Bombay. My grandmother's a matchmaker. So I grew up in this culture where matchmaking was super common. But more than that, my maternal grandma had set up so many of my aunts and uncles. She'd set up so many different people in the general community. So I knew and always appreciated what love can do and how strong of a gift it is to give someone, to introduce them to their life partner. And I, as someone who's super social and outgoing, I always loved setting people up. I always joke that the first setup I ever did was for my 8th grade school social, where I was trying to help my friends get asked out by the boys they liked at the time, which now feels inevitable that this will be exactly what my career path would be. But if you'd asked me then, and maybe even if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I don't know if I would have told you that I would get known as oh, you're a matchmaker. I don't think of myself in that traditional matchmaker sense, but very much think about what I'm doing is a way to expand, think about it as privilege expansion of helping people figure out life's most important decision.
That is crazy. So for context, I was raised in Belgium, but I also grew up in Bombay. I lived there for 8 years, so I had no idea you're from Bombay. That's awesome. You are technically a matchmaker, but I want to know education-wise, what did you study? What did you pursue? Was that in line with what you're doing right now? Is it completely different?
Absolutely not. Personally, I'm not sure if you need to have any qualifications, to be honest, to be a matchmaker, other than to be super social and enjoy listening to people and listening to their love stories and their problems, their life stories. But I actually grew up in Bombay, but I went to boarding school in New Hampshire. So I was here. I thought I wanted to be a journalist. My first internship was for actually Arnab Goswami on Times Now. So I really thought I was going to be a news journalist. So I went to Georgetown to study politics and then ended up going to McKinsey, worked in VC, then went to Stanford for business school and got a master's in education as well. So I think I studied a range of different topics. And I found myself throughout all those life stages and phases. What I loved doing was actually setting people up. And that was a very untraditional journey. Obviously, for certain things, you need to study what you're going to do in school. But I think I got to just do it outside of what I was doing at school. And that was kind of how I ended up here.
That's wild. So you went from politics to business to this entire spectrum. I'm curious, so when did you decide, matchmaking is what you're going to do full time? When was that specific moment? Wait, can this really be my path?
It was while I was at GSB. I was in, I took, my whole thing was at Stanford. You have 2 years, you have 6 quarters and a summer. So that was seven basically opportunities to figure out what I wanted to build. I knew I wanted to be a founder. I knew I wanted to build in the consumer space. I wanted to build something for my classmates and my friends and something that people would like really get excited about. And then I like tested a bunch of different ideas that were, everything from like consumer health to like mental health to relationship counseling, like a range of things that I thought were interesting to me. And every quarter I would experiment on a different idea. And then winter quarter of my second year, I was in a room with my 2 best friends in like a class project. And like we were like talking about like what I wanted to do. And we just like hit this of like, I love love. I love dating. I love relationships. And I like wanted to like really build a company that would help people make this incredibly important life decision. So I feel like now everyone is looking at this like dream run of a journey of like, oh, you love matchmaking. Now you have a funded company in matchmaking. And it's like, but that wasn't really the story or the journey. I actually 2 years ago to the date shut down my first dating app that I built with a different co-founder. And I really thought I was going to go be a product manager at Notion, which was like, it still continues to be probably a consumer company that I adore. And I didn't think I was going to like build another dating app or like anything in this space. And I just kept coming back to it and then found the right co-founder, the right timing, the right market, like everything just came together. So I don't know if I could have predicted this is where I would end up, but I think it's really important to like listen to the signs, look at the signs and make sure that you're like making the decisions that make the most sense for you at the time. It's so easy to look back and be like, but all the signs were there, but it's very hard in the moment.
As crazy as it sounds, a lot of it comes down to timing. Just being in the right place at the right time, finding the right person at the right time can make all the difference. I had no idea you had another company as well before, but was that similar to what Sitch is doing right now or something different?
It was called Setup. And the whole idea there was that people would like always like swipe and then like chat and then never actually go on a date. So instead it was like you swiped on each other and if you both matched, it would basically pull up your schedule and like help coordinate when and where you were meeting for a date and you would never actually message. So that's actually now when you look at a bunch of apps that are out there, they're building what we did 2 years ago. My learnings from that were like, that is not a company, that is a product feature and it doesn't make sense to like build that because Hinge, Bumble, Tinder, all of these players can just quickly build that exact same feature and then what's like actual moat do you have in that sense, right? My co-founder at the time for Setup wasn't super passionate about the space and even though we had bootstrapped and were making like solid revenue enough to like live very comfortably, like pay ourselves, maybe even hire people, he didn't feel passionately about it. So I felt like, okay, I now know you have to build something that the big players are not going to be able to like copy very easily and incorporate into your product. And you need to find a co-founder who's going to be there like your ride or die till the end on this topic area, right? And I knew if I was going to start again, I had to be with like a co-founder who was so deeply passionate about it. And with something that said like it was like a category defining product, not an add-on.
Before we get into Sitch and talk about everything in detail, I have one more question about content creation. I'm curious if you started making content early on. Did you have a startup before? What was that journey like?
Honestly, I actually just like really like posting. When I think about like all the things I was doing in my life, like I didn't really have a creative outlet. I'm someone who's like, I would say like quite creative. Like I love writing. I have a Substack, which I'm actually far more proud of than my Instagram presence. I obviously like post a lot on Instagram, but like for me, it was just always nice to be able to feel like, okay, like I don't need to choose between the creative side and like honestly, like the business and tech side, I can do both. And it's something that I did for fun. Like, I think content creation has now become this big thing. And there's so much like stuff around like, oh, if you want to be a founder, you need to like have a brand and whatnot. So it like starts to feel a little, I think, a little less authentic because everyone's like trying to be a founder-led brand. And I think it's hard also if you're a person who's like, I just want to build, like, I want to build a really cool product. I don't necessarily want to make TikToks. But I was doing it well in advance of this. And it's now become like, I think our like secret weapon. The fact that I'm like pretty comfortable like talking on camera at any given point and that I'm like in general the face of the company. But I don't know if I would say that every founder needs to do this.
I want to talk more about the company itself that you're building, dive deeper into the dating ecosystem. My first question is, why does the world still need a matchmaker? when we have all of those apps out there already?
The question of how to find your soulmate has been one that's plagued us since like the ancient Greeks, right? Like since for millennia, we've been asking the question, how do you know who's your soulmate? And we've not answered that. Dating apps have not answered that, right? It's not that everyone is married, everyone is happily married, like anything like that. I think dating apps are like a continuation of a long tradition of us trying to answer this incredibly important human question of like, what does love mean? What does falling in love and staying in love look and feel, right? And I don't think we will ever have an answer to that question. Matchmaking is an age-old tradition, a centuries-old tradition that actually far like has outlasted any kind of like swipe-based apps or like a match.com or a shadi.com or anything like that. But it's always been something that's for the super elite, right? Matchmaking is expensive. It's something that like the average person can't afford. But then I ask the question of, if this is the most important decision you're going to make in your life, right? Like that is going to have the highest impact, right? Like your partner is going to have the biggest impact on your like professional, personal, end of life satisfaction, all of these things. Why is it that we expect that you're just going to know who this person is? That you have to like do this by yourself. Like you need to like go to a bar and hope that you run into them, or you like swipe and you hope that the algorithm favors you, right? Like, because when it comes to like applying to a good college, whether it's running a marathon, for all of these other less big milestones, you have all of these resources to help you. So my thing was not about let me build another dating app. It was like, let me build something that helps people make this decision. Now, what that turned out to be was that, hey, you can build this at scale using large language models and make it an AI matchmaker who can guide you on that journey. But that is a fundamentally different idea than what the previous dating apps were.
How do you decide what AI can do versus what only a human should do in matchmaking?
No, I think we're asking that louder question, right? Like of like, what is the extent of our humanity? I think I've had the most fun experience building this because I'm asking, we've trained the bot on me. We've trained it on how I speak, how I think, how I matchmake. You speak to you also the onboarding on Sitch. You're talking to the AI version of me. It has my name, it has my face, it has my tone, all of that. And I actually find like this is like one of the most like deeply philosophical like experiments of my life of like, well, there's like tens of thousands of people every single day talking to the AI version of me. And like, that's kind of crazy, right? Like that's just such a bizarre thing. And we're way too early in this journey around AI to say what should AI do? What can AI do? What are humans better at doing? I think this is it's a learning experience for us all. I think what Chad and I ask ourselves is like, we are constantly measuring, is it better when an AI does it or is it better when a human does it, right? At the various steps in the process. For instance, one of my biggest concerns when we were building this was like, people are going to be so awkward about talking to an AI, right? Like, it's like, are you really going to tell the AI all this personal details? Turns out you're so wrong about that. People are desperate to share about their love life because they and not only that, it's like if I was asking, I don't do much about your love life, you would share, even in the context of maybe a matchmaker, you would share 90% honesty. You wouldn't share 100% because it's such a deeply personal experience. With the AI version of me, it's not a real human. Like, but there's a suspicion of reality enough where people are like, oh, wait, I'm going to say whatever I want. Like people are oversharing almost because they feel really And I think that's really interesting, right? Because you hate your United Airlines customer support bot because you're like, this is not being helpful at all. But somehow here is the place where you're like, actually, I don't want a human because this is so deeply personal that I would feel judged. So there we're like, okay, this is like doing really well. A place where I don't think like AI has gotten good enough is actually like verifying you are who you say you are, right? So we still do hand verification of the process of like, okay, like when we're accepting new users, do we does this person do the pictures, does the verification selfie match up to the pictures they've used? Or is it like someone different? Is it too super edited? Like that kind of stuff. And I think that we're learning, like we are all like, and it's not just us, like we as a society and ultra learning, like what are the things that we're giving to AI and what are the parts that we don't feel comfortable giving to AI and what are the parts where like we like AI plus human is the ultimate answer. And for us, the use of AI is not like, oh, this is a good use case of AI, so we're doing it. The reason we're using AI in our case is that if I hired an army of matchmakers to serve my 30, 40,000 customers in New York. It would be very like time intensive, cost intensive, and labor intensive. And like that doesn't really make sense to me to do it that way. What is far, far more interesting is to be like, well, if I could, be a human matchmaker and charge you $10,000, or I could use AI and be able to scale it to say that everyone can spend $100 and have someone who helps them like navigate this very difficult decision.
That is so interesting. I would have never also intuitively thought that people are willing to share more with a bot versus an actual human.
Sorry for interrupting, Ash. Now, to add what you just said, OpenAI released essentially the results of their research on how humans surprisingly overshare information and their life's information with a bot. So this is essentially just like, I guess, like reinforces what you just said. I have a quick question as well. I'm wondering, did your algorithm set you up with anyone you ended up seeing, or?
I've been married for 4 years. I've been with my husband for like 7 years. So
okay, wow.
I think it predates a little bit of the algorithms and AI, but we met at actually a founder and investor dinner when I was home in India for a year for business school, and we actually like worked on a company together. So we are not a AI success story, but we are two founders can actually make it work.
For people in the audience who don't know how Sitch works, when you download the app, when you get on this platform, can you walk us through what this looks like?
Everything that you would do with a human matchmaker, you do it with the AI version of me. So you get on board and you have like a conversation with me about your likes, your dislikes, your long-term goals, your values, like what you're looking for in a partner, non-negotiables, deal breakers, like a much more rigorous and in-depth understanding of who you are and what you're looking for than you get from like setting up your own Hinge profile conversation. The matchmaker actually like spits back out like in some ways like a profile or like a date me doc about you, so that you can see what they've understood. Then our human team actually reviews you and makes sure that you are someone who you are who you say you are. And then the fun begins. Of course, all our users are paid users. We like just don't believe in like a free model because it just doesn't indicate the level of seriousness that we would like from users on our platform. So you buy like a pack of dates. So you buy like 3, 5, or 8. And then once you're on the platform, your matchmaker sends you someone, you give feedback on that. If you both say yes, then the matchmaker introduces you on a group chat. So it is literally exactly what Seema Auntie would do, or like what traditional matchmaker would do, except no one is telling you to settle down. No one is telling you to lower your standards. No one is telling you like, oh, like this is like, you don't need to feel judged and you can be super honest. And people are being incredibly honest, not just in the onboarding, but also in the feedback cycles as well.
So all the fun, but without the pressure, which I guess is how everyone wants it, right?
I would say it's a different kind of pressure, right? Like where people are joining this because they're like, hey, like I've been on swipe-based apps for a really long time. Like I'm not really looking for like, I don't want to swipe on like 500 people and then have conversations with 10 people and then like be ghosted by the one person who I make a plan with. Right. So I think here there is a very high intent data. Ticket prices, like it's, the lowest ticket value item is like 99. Right. So if you're like spending like that kind of money, you're like very like deliberate and you're like serious about needing something. So I think people really like that, right? It's like, oh, this is like I care about this. And I'm indicating that I care about it by paying for it.
Have you ever disagreed with your algorithm?
We definitely disagree frequently with the algorithm. We QA everything. And I still love like doing matchmaking, so I'll still do it by hand sometimes, and we'll go head to head with like the AI. And I think the AI is getting a lot better, but it's not perfect, right? It has to understand the nuances. Like if someone says, oh, I want a girl who's a little more edgy, how is your AI supposed to understand why? Like that's like really hard.
That's so funny.
But eventually it will. I am convinced that your AI will be able to understand your vibes. But until then, yeah, I think you need the human intervention. You need to understand like what people are asking. Like we had a user who said, oh, I only want to date people in buy side, not sell side. And the AI literally like spit it back to like the customer support being like, question mark, like what do I do with this?
Was you referring buy side? What was you referring to? Like finance? Or
yeah, literally
that's
was
crazy.
like I only people buy side, finance, sell side.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like
no, that's actually nuts. Okay,
Like-
can the agent like scrape like LinkedIn to figure out this stuff, or
So
is it impossible?
we don't do like, well, if it's about a user on our platform, then yes, it knows that, right? Because I know your job description and like what you do, but we're not like, the AI is not sourcing candidates for you. It's like only within like our like very much vetted community that it would like even set you up with someone.
So there are a bunch of like AI social networks out there. I'm sure you've heard of Sirius. That's the most recent one. I wonder if they ever try to break into like dating, right? The dating ecosystem. What makes an AI kind of matchmaker different from like their AI that essentially connects
It's
you to people
information,
from
right?
other?
It's information.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
like what your LinkedIn tells you. Your LinkedIn does not know if you have an aging parent in Minnesota and you want to eventually move back home. It doesn't tell you if you're like, hey, I'm going to be a lawyer in New York the rest of my life. All your different agents have access to very different info sets, right? It's like, and that's sort of like, that's always been the case. Like you behave very differently on LinkedIn than you behave on Twitter, than you behave on Instagram. So that same thing, it's like, yeah, like maybe by functionality, like Sirius and all of these like similar like networking tools are trying to do the same thing. But my pushback is they don't have the same information moat that we have. And we have far more information because you can't scrape LinkedIn. Like, trust me, the types of things you're talking to your matchmaker about, you have not posted that publicly. You're deeply held, honestly, your beliefs, your biases, your dreams, your hopes, it's not there. Right? Like maybe if you're a very public personality on Substack, like maybe I can scrape in and find that out. But most people aren't, right?
So the moat is literally like the information the user gives you, right? The information the user gives the AI, that's the moat.
That is, it's like you are trusting us and you're telling us, and it's like, yeah, we have way more information about you that you've shared with us than Hinge. Hinge doesn't know why you've said no to a person. They can assume it's because you didn't think they were attractive. But maybe what you didn't like was that they like support your rival football team, you know? Like you like, it's like, these things they run so deep and they're so individual. And the other thing I always say is, at the end of the day, like you have to see what people would pay for. The average person is not paying collected premium, right? But a lot of people are like, I would pay money to meet my soulmate. I don't know if I'd pay money to meet like someone for coffee, like to review my resume. And I think when I've looked at different consumer companies, it's always come down to like, what will people actually pay for in today's day and age, right? And because I don't want to build something on like ad revenue, I don't want to build something by selling this data. I want it to be that it's value-based service, like in the most traditional sense of the term. So I think that's again a big differentiator with Sitch. Like we really like care about outcomes. We don't charge a subscription. We charge per setup. So those are all big differences for us.
So one last question I had. So which data points have turned out to be surprisingly poor predictors of long-term compatibility, despite seeming, intuitively important at first?
So I'll say two things on that. The first is that there's no formula. There's literally no formula, because actually the biggest mistake people make is to be like, the only thing that matters is attractiveness or education or background or religion. It's not. It's that if you are looking for ABC in a partner, that partner needs to have ABC. And that person's looking for XYZ, you need to have that. So it's really about like understanding and going to the minute details of like what really matters to you and why, right? And we're able to like really get into that and understand it. And then the second thing that surprised me, and I don't know if it surprised me or was just like, hey, like, I think I fundamentally knew this, was that people always look for similar to, right? Like where it's like, oh, like I play squash and you play squash and we're both extroverts. So therefore we must make a great couple. And actually like similar hobbies, similar interests and similar personality traits are not good predictors at all. You want to have similar values and long-term goals, and you actually want to have complementary interests and personality traits. So you can't just do a simple, like similar to algorithm and like find the person who's most like you.
That is really interesting, because I've heard all these things like opposites attract, or you need to find someone who can do the same things as you. But we're learning more as we ask you more questions about love. One question I want to know, this is more of a fun question. I saw you did like events in LA where you had like singles come out. I saw you have successfully matched a lot of people as well. So what's one story from your journey? So it could be like an early client, like a funny fail, some kind of unexpected win that people would never guess. We want to hear the fun stories.
My favorite story is probably like I was on a podcast with like 3 other people who I hadn't met before. And midway through the podcast, we're talking about dating. I like look at one of the guys. I'm like, I have the perfect girl for you. Like, he's like, just been talking. I'm like, I'm telling you, I have the perfect girl. And he's like, yeah, like, sure, like, happy to meet her. And my mother's like, okay. And then I was like, just out of curiosity, what's your physical type? He was like, yeah, like, at least 5'8", redhead. I'm like, great, she's a 5'10" redhead. I literally like this. I like text my best friend. And I'm like, I call her, she doesn't answer. I'm like, ping, ping, I found your husband, right? And they like moved in together a few months ago. And
No
it was
way.
literally like one of those things where like I met him and I just knew, like I just fundamentally knew. And my friend's mom had a dream a month before that I was going to introduce her to her husband. So it was this like bizarre twist of fate where I was like, the universe just wants these things to happen, but it's really hard to be like, it can't just be luck, right? Like we can't just hope that someone goes on a podcast with someone else and like gets introduced. But I think like the arbitrariness of love can be like kind of demoralizing for a lot of people. And I think part of my job is to be like, hey, like maybe it doesn't have to be so random and it actually is a data problem that we're looking at and saying, if we had perfect data, could we find perfect partners?
That's definitely a skill, looking at someone in the middle of a podcast and being like, I know your ideal life partner. As a woman founder in this space, what unique challenges do you think you faced and how did you turn them into an advantage or your superpower?
So I think this is one of those crazy times where I'm going to be like, yeah, being an Indian woman building a matchmaking app is as much of a positive as there could possibly be, right? I think if I was building like a crypto startup or a B2B SaaS, people would be like, you're a woman, you're not white. Like those kind of questions would come up, or like those kind of like biases would like seep in. But this is the first time when people are like, yes, absolutely. It makes so much sense. Like my co-founder is a 50-year-old guy named Chad, who is amazing. And like the first thing when people meet us, they're like, oh, it makes sense that like everyone sees me as the face of the company. Because it's like, yeah, this is the one time where my background really helps, right? And to that, I always tell people, it's like, you want to fundamentally do the thing that you're most excited about and that you are uniquely suited to it. Like, don't find like a problem and try to force fit it, or like a solution and try to force fit it to a problem you don't care about. Like, find the thing that really gets you going, because that's what people get, like, investors, like anyone gets really excited about. Look, the system can suck sometimes and like things can be rooted against you. I think sometimes we focus on trying to change the system too much. I would love more VC funding to go to female founders, right? But if all I do is try to fight about that, I would rather like build a really massive company and then be someone who can like write those angel checks into investments. Like you need to think about how you want to change the system. And sometimes part of it is like, you need to like be part of the system and win in the system in order to make the changes.
You guys seem like you make a great team. So I love that.
We're incredibly close. I think the most important decision you make after picking your life partner, if you're a founder, is picking your co-founder and, having had a few exes along the way in both co-founders and husbands. You realize that like, this is the most important thing. You will hire, you will fire, you will like make like a wrong pricing decision, a wrong marketing decision, a wrong product decision. But like the most important decision you need to make is like, who are you going on this journey with? Like the journey of building a life or building a company.
So for everyone who has tuned in and everyone listening, if they want to start something, content, business, if they have an idea, what's one lesson from 0 to 1, pun intended, that your journey has really taught you and that applies equally to both love and startups?
Tell everyone what you want. Like literally like scream it from the rooftops, because if you tell people I am looking for X, Y, and Z, and you say it enough times and you talk about it a lot, people will literally find it for you. Like they will remember it. Like I got introduced to my co-founder through someone else because I kept talking and posting and like being like, I want to build this company. I want like this, like someone who's as excited about it. Talk about what you care about. Talk about your passions. Like talk about your interests. Talk about what you want to build. And I promise you, like people will help you go from 0 to 1.
Closed mouths don't get opportunities. I read that somewhere and it has absolutely stuck with me. So love that. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm sure you have a lot of things going on, super busy. So we really appreciate you taking out the time.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to chat with both of you about the journey so far. Hopefully this was fun for your listeners. And I had so much fun chatting with you, and you definitely asked like a really great set of questions. And I'm super excited to have been on this.
It was really nice meeting you. Thank you.